I'm David Handley with the University of Maine Cooperative Extension, and we're here to talk about the Garden to Lunchroom program, and this is step 2, maintaining the garden. Primarily what we want to talk about here is water safety. Gardens, of course, require quite a bit of water to get through the growing season, but you want to make sure that that water is coming from a safe source. Now, water can come from several different sources. We have surface water, which is water coming from lakes, streams, or ponds, or rain barrels, if you happen to be using those and collecting water from your roof. We also have water from municipal sources. This is water where you just turn on the tap and it's coming from the town or the city associated with you. And of course, we also have well water, and this can be from a dug well or a drilled well. The safest sources from the perspective of food safety is either municipal water, because it's regulated and treated on a regular basis, or well water, especially from a drilled well, which is quite deep and also is better protected from anything happening to get into it, as opposed to a dug well. Both drilled wells and dug wells can be very safe sources of water if they are checked on an annual basis. And this is simply having a water test done, sending a sample to the state water lab, and making sure that there aren't any dangerous pathogens in it, such as E. coli or other chemical contaminants that could cause problems later. So if you are using well water, check the well once in a while, make sure the casing is safe, make sure the lid is on tight and nothing can get in there, and make sure you have that water tested at least once a year to make sure there are no contaminants in it. If you are using surface water, in other words, drawing water out of a pond, out of a stream, or using rain barrels and collecting water from a roof, this should not be considered potable or drinkable water. It is fine for watering the garden. We usually recommend that you use trickle or drip irrigation, that is, pipes lying down and putting the water on the soil surface rather than irrigating over the tops of the plants, which could lead to contamination with things like leafy vegetables, your lettuce, your chard, your spinach, and things like that. But it's still okay to use overhead irrigation as long as that produce is going to be rinsed thoroughly before it is eaten. So we generally recommend that if you're using surface water, it is only used for irrigation. It should not be used for washing because it is not considered clean, potable water. So you can use it for watering, preferably well before harvest. But once we get near to harvest, you should switch to potable water. And again, these surface water sources should not be used for rinsing and cleaning vegetables. Now, when we also talk about our water sources, we want to make sure that most of our sources are clean. If you're using a hose and you're watering, especially if you are rinsing your vegetables for harvest, you want to make sure the ends are clean and not covered in mud. Also, you want to make sure that you have backflow prevention on any hoses that you have, such that if I finish watering and put this hose end down in a muddy puddle, it is not going to be siphoned back in and actually contaminate my water source. Okay? Now, newer faucets tend to have bibs put in them so that they create a little air gap and you're not going to get this back siphoning problem. But if you're dealing with older plumbing and you have an older bib on there, you can just run down to the hard store, and for a very inexpensive cost, you can just buy a little bib that goes between your hose and your faucet, and that will create that air gap and you won't get any back siphoning. If you're using pesticides in your garden, first of all, remember that if you're at a school site, whoever is using pesticides needs to be a certified pesticide applicator. You also need to follow all the directions that are on the pesticide label. So read that label thoroughly, make sure you're using it safely, and also make sure that you're not mixing and loading chemicals around your water source. So you don't want to be next to the well, you don't want to be doing this near your rain barrel or actually anywhere where it could potentially contaminate your future water source. Again, follow all directions when you are using those pesticides. As far as cleaning and washing goes, once you get to the point where you're harvesting that produce, it should be cleaned and washed prior to eating or prior to going into storage. And as I mentioned before, that should only be done with clean, potable water. So either using your well water for drinking water or using municipal water. And that basically wraps it up for water safety.